Hi, good afternoon. So I promised I'd do a internal setup with PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do this page that you can see on your screen. It's quite a simple setup. It's not complicated, but it'll give you a good understanding of how to get started, what you can do, and from there you can just start to play. But I've picked this one because it is really about manipulating boxes and how you can create lines and how you can use tables, etc., to make boxes that you can create really nice journals with. I will do a second video about how to manipulate graphics, how to change the color of them, and how to turn them grayscale, like the one you can see in this page. But I'm not going to do it in this one because it's actually a subject all of its own, and it will take time to show you because there's so many options, and it is such a successful tool to use. PowerPoint was really created as a business piece of software. It was never created for what we're using it for, but the tools that are in here are really very clever. So shall I just crack on and we'll see how far we get? Right, so first of all, this is the page that we are going to create. So you have to do what we did in the last video, which is set up your pages to be the absolute right size that you need. And I always, as I said before, put a template in so that I can make sure I'm not overlapping in terms of margins and where the bleed is going to be. So this is the page we're going to create, but we're going to do it on the second sheet, and I'm going to start now. But what I'm going to do to start off with is just copy this image because I don't want to have to go and do all the work on that one again. So moving on to the second page. So here we go. Here's our page. So the first thing I do is put this image in. This is the original to this picture is actually color. I have turned it into a grayscale and I have made it more transparent so that you can write over it and it doesn't dominate the page. The other thing to remember is when you're creating pages for KDP, they always need to be in black and white or in grayscale, because if you put colors into your interiors, unless you're going to actually print them as color, it's going to be very deceiving for the customer, because they will see a color version on the screen, but then when they get the book, it's grayscale, and that will just get you some really bad reviews. So don't do it. Just stick with grayscale. So I always grayscale my stuff before I upload it. I don't want that to happen to me. Right, so I've put my first image in, and this is the image that's going to sit in the background at the top and be my pretty little image. Now what I'm going to do is insert a piece of word art, because you know me, I like my word art. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to type in the word diary because that is what I did. I'm going to Control A it to select all of the text, go to the home menu up here, and then I'm going to change to Agnes, which is one of my favorite fonts. I don't know why, maybe it's just I'm secretly very old. And then I'm going to also change the size of my Agnes, my diary word, and I'm going to move it into position. Now, again, can you see the pink lines, the red lines? The guidelines are popping up because PowerPoint is seeing me trying to line something up, and it's saying, I'm going to give you a hand with that. So there we go. That is now perfectly lined up with my flowers in the background. The next thing I'm going to put in is actually at the bottom of the page, because I want to make sure that I'm spreading out all of my elements nicely. As you saw in the video that the guys did for their live, one of the biggest problems with templates and with pages in books is that people don't think about actually having to write in them, and you need to make sure that the space that you're giving your buyers is enough to actually be able to write in. So sticking boxes in that will only allow a 10-point font is just setting yourself up for failure, because people won't be able to write in that. They won't even be able to read it properly, let alone writing it. So again, try and stick to, I always try and go with a minimum of a size 14 font when it comes to spacing out pages. All right, so think about that. when you're doing it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the marquee tool to create my bottom box. Right click on it to change the outline. Now this is where it gets interesting, because whilst I showed you in the last video that you can change the weight of the box, the darkness of the outline, what I didn't go into, because too much information in one go, was that you can actually change the style of the lines. So if you scroll down beyond weight, there is a dash box, and there is a plethora of different weights and dots that you can use to make your boxes look a little bit more interesting and not just a square box. So I'm going to pick this one, which is a dash dot, and then I'm going to empty the fill out and just have a no fill. So now I have a nice clear box that's got quite a pretty little border around it, which was, as you just saw, very simply done. And then I am going to home. I was going to insert a text box, and I'm going to put that inside. As you can see, you can layer upon layer upon layer with this, which is in itself very powerful. I want Agnes, and I want this to just say notes. And I want to bold that to make it a little bit darker, and I want to increase the size to a 24. And then all I have to do is position my word. Now you can see, if this ever happens to you and the outside border keeps selecting, all you need to do is go off page, click, then go back to where you really want to be when it will behave, and then you'll be able to get back to your box. Sometimes it does get a little bit stuck in its ways and is trying to force you to pick the biggest image that it can see. So that's how you get away from that. So right, there we go. And you can see why I put the red border mask image in anyway, so that it's giving me a real idea of where my borders really are, takes the guesswork out of it, so that I can make a page that is going to fit, is not going to have any problems with upload, and that is going to be, a really nice shape on a page. Okay, so that's my notes box in. Now I'm also going to put in a box for the diary itself, what I call the appointments block. So let's do that. As you see, again, right click on the side of the box. I'm again going to go for a black outline, but I'm going to make it not as thick as the previous one. So I'm going down to 3/4 points. I'm going to take the fill out, no fill, and then I'm going to also make it a dashed box. And as you can see, it looks a little bit more delicate than the previous one because I've made it a slightly lighter fill, a slightly lighter outline. In fact, I can even make that one a little bit darker because it's still a bit thin. There we go. It's still a bit thinner than I wanted. So you can now see that there's a definite definition between this box and that box. Now, save myself some time, I can now take that box, Control C or copy up here, and then paste it. And that gives me the second box that I wanted on this page, on this side, for the to-do box. And I want my to-do box to be a slightly smaller. So make the appointments box a little bit bigger. And then, to save myself some time, I'm going to copy and paste and copy and paste. So that preserves the size of the font, it preserves the font that I'm using, and it also saves me a little bit of time in terms of, you know, having to reset up new boxes. Right, now, so can you see the red lines again? That is trying to help me to line up these two words perfectly with each other. When you see the two lines like that, it means you've got it spot on. Drop, double click inside and change the word. And in this case, center it. And the same thing in here, Control A. And center it. To make sure that these two boxes are exactly where I want them to be lined up. See the red line in the bottom? So two red lines above and below says it's lined up. And then I'm looking for the red line, there it is, to pop up to tell me that I've got exactly in the center of that box. And the same thing with this one. I want to make sure it's exactly in the center. Come on, find them. There it is, of that box. Okay, now I'm happy with this layout, apart from this box is slightly too big on the side. And again, you can see the red lines, the arrows are popping up to tell me that I'm getting this correct and that these things are now in line. Let it go. So now that these boxes are, I know that they're in the right place. I can now click on this outside box and delete it. And that is more what your page in your book is going to look like. So now we're going to put the detail in. There's two ways of adding lines to the appointments bit where I want to put the times, where I want to put this here and this here. There's two ways of doing it. So I'm going to show you both ways by doing one in one box and one in the other. Okay. So the first one I'll do is the appointments. So generally, lines can be a little bit of a pain because you have to draw them one at a time and you have to connect them from side to side, and sometimes you're never quite sure if they're level. So I find that if you've got to do a what is in effect looks like a table, you might as well use a table. So what we do is we go to this button here, which is go to Insert, Table. Choose, for in this case, if you were going to choose, if you were going to do a table of contents like was done earlier in today's tutorial, you saw that Jacob was putting a table in and then formatting the table. Well, this is the same thing. It's exactly the same tool. Google have just co-opted it. So pick however many lines it is you want. You can always tab to create more, so it's not a problem. And I know this does not look how you would want it to look yet, but it will in a moment. So I'm going to size the table to fit into my box. That's about right. There we go, smack in the middle. As you can see, the red lines are showing up to tell me you are in the middle. If you click on the button that I'm here, the More button, underneath the graphic of tables, you will see there's a load of selections as to what you can do with tables. So you can have different lines, headers, all sorts of things. The ones for us that are really useful are the ones that are grayscaled, because quite a lot of the time it means you can just slip a table in with a grayscale header in with a grayscale right column or left column, and you know, it's bliss. For this particular job, we're going to use this table, which is no style and just lines. And as you can see now, it's got a bunch of lines in that we don't actually really want. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in my, you can write in tables, you don't actually have to need to start putting word boxes into tables, you can just type straight into them. So 8 AM, tab, 9 AM, take the line out, tab, 10 AM, Right, you get the drift. I'll be typing this in for hours otherwise. In order to make them, in fact, just do them all because I don't know. 30, no. 1, 2, 3. And as you can see, now I press tab, new line appears. 4, tab, 5, tab 6, tab 7. We'll leave it at that. Right, so if you wanted to add more months, more times, and you want to go full 12 hours, what you could just do is adjust the notes box down. A lot of this is about playing and finding out what works in terms of your design, because sometimes you have to make adjustments just in order to make it work. Otherwise you'll end up with something that doesn't. All right, I need that box to come down. Okay, so, and as you can see, just by adjusting the pull down here, it is making those box squares bigger for me. It's doing the work for me. I now want to change the text, so highlight the boxes, change the font, and as you can see, my font is 14.6. Yeah, I can up that if I want to 16, which will make my numbers a little bit bigger and a little bit more pleasant to look at. And the next thing I want to do is get rid of these ugly lines. So you click on the edge of the box. See there? If you double click, the table design tools reappear. And what we're going to do is remove the borders. So take out the borders. We are going to put them back, promise. But you could actually leave them without. Some people do not like lines in their tables or in their appointment diaries, in which case if I click off now, you'll see it disappears, and that is what will be printed. You will see a lovely, nicely laid out set of times, but no lines. You'll be fine. But I want the lines. But I want the lines to be underneath each of the times, because I'm one of those people that needs lines to write. Otherwise I end up with diagonal writing that goes all the way up the page and just looks dreadful. So I need those lines, so I tend to put them in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm only going to put in the bottom borders. So highlight each segment. Stop messing me around. There we go, I'll start at the bottom, except I don't want to do that one. And I'm just going to put the bottom borders of each box, apart from the bottom one. I won't be putting that one in because I want it to look like the dotted line is the bottom of the box. So I don't, and putting a line above it is a bit pointless and kind of spoils the look really. So I'm not doing it. I keep looking out the window, in case you're wondering, I keep looking out the window because we've just decided to have a deluge of rain. Typical England. Weekend comes and it starts to rain. That's just the way it works around here. So go into each box and just add the lines. There we go. Now you can see you have a really nice box, lovely straight lines, and it's ready to go. That bit's done. So that's how you use a table to create lines. You could not bother with this lovely border that I've put in. If you just wanted a plain old table, just have all the lines for the table in, jobs are good, and you still can use that. And over here, I want to add a to-do list. So you have got, as I showed you before, a whole load of really cute symbols that you could use. I'm going to be really boring and just use the circle. So the ellipse, as they like to call it. So you draw a circle, and as you can see, it's going to be blue. So right click on that, put the outline in, and I want the outline to be black. Put the weight in, so circle's now there, and then change the fill to no fill. Make the box, the little circles smaller. You can make it really quite small if you want to. That's quite nice. And then pop it where you want it. And now I'm going to add the line. So you attach to the bottom of the circle. You draw your line, and in, with any luck, you get it straight, which I always struggle with. Straight lines and me do not really mix unless I'm using a pair of scissors, in which case I can do the straightest lines you've ever seen. Change the outline colour to black. Can also at this point change the weight again. And there you go. You got a really nice set. And if you group them together like that, they are now one graphic and they are not moving. So you can shift it around inside that box until you've got it exactly how you want it. The other good thing about that is you can now click on the outside of the box, control copy, and copy that as many times as you like, and pop them in nicely lined up. A few more. Okay, now can you see the red lines are again popping up? And that is PowerPoint trying to assist me to line these up perfectly. And as I do them, it will show me that I'm getting the distance between them correct as well. See the arrow? There we go, the arrows. That is telling me that, yeah, you're in the right ballpark. You're making them just the right distance from each other. It's a little bit confused at the moment because I haven't done them all, but as you add them in, it gets better at recognizing how far apart you want them from each other. See what I mean? There they go. Right, so I can fit one more in if I want. And there we have a nice diary page, all ready to go. Except I did put the line in there that I didn't want. There we go. I'm happy with that. So obviously I haven't done all of the numbering properly, but I think I've given you a good indication of how you can create a page in PowerPoint. Now, one last trick. When you're happy with your page, when you're convinced that you've got your page right, this is something that I do enjoy about PowerPoint. You can just click on the page and duplicate it, which if you're going to create a set of pages, so say for instance you create a 5-day set of pages for a diary, and it works best with undated things, I have to admit, because otherwise you have to go back and manually date them. But again, you know, being able to copy all these pages one after the other and then just go back and add a few dates, come on, who can argue with that? But this means that you can just repeat this page over and over and over and over again. You can do the same thing with sets of pages. So by pressing Control and clicking on the pages that you want, you can copy those, go to the bottom and paste them in. So you can create a set of pages and then create a whole book in a very short space of time. You can work very hard on creating, and most of the journals and things that we work with are all repetition. They're all repeated pages after a certain point. Quite often I will go in and then add a graphic in between a few pages, or a colouring page, or a daily thought, or something inspirational, or just a piece of information, or a list of holiday dates, just different things. But the main bulk of the work is already, I've done it and it looks good, and all I have to do is copy and paste it and copy and paste it until I have the number of pages that I want. And then you save as a PDF and you've got your interior and it's complete. So I hope that was really helpful to you. Thank you for watching.